At a little past 3 in the morning, late October, in the pine country of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, a trail camera strapped to a jack pine fired a single frame, and standing in it was a cougar, exactly where science said no cougar could be. One frame. That's all the motion sensor caught. A long, low-slung body, muscle sliding under a tan coat, caught flat in the cold wash of infrared, and behind it, dragging almost to the ground, that heavy tail. The rope of a tail, thick as a wrist, curling up at the very tip. Look at the tail, longer than the legs, curling at the tip. Hold that image, because everything in this case turns on it. For years, the people who saw that photo had one job: explain it away. They called it a glitch in the sensor, a house cat wandering too close to the lens, a hoax, a misplaced photo from somewhere else, somewhere the animal belonged. The frame, they said, should not exist. But the man who owned that camera never accepted a word of it. A veteran field biologist, decades in the northern woods, someone who'd read every track and every carcass this country could show him. He looked at that single frame, and he believed it was telling the truth. He never stopped. Here's why that matters. The animal in the picture is puma concolor, the cougar, the mountain lion, the widest-ranging land mammal in all of the Americas. It should be an easy thing to find. But by the middle of the 20th century, every breeding population east of the Mississippi had collapsed, wiped out, hunted and cleared until only one small remnant held on, deep in the swamps of Florida. So, in the Great Lakes woods, a cougar was not rare. It was impossible. The eastern cougar had been declared functionally gone from this region for nearly 100 years. And a cat this size doesn't just pass through unnoticed. It needs deer to hunt, thick cover to move in, hundreds of square miles to call its own. The nearest confirmed population was out in the Dakotas, 1,000 miles of highway and farmland away. You would have heard nothing. One frame, one animal, and a question no one could close. And yet, weeks before the camera ever fired, a deer hunter had already told his story at the diner. A tan cat, that unmistakable tail, crossing a 2-track at dawn. They laughed him off quietly over coffee. The hunter's word alone proved nothing. But weeks after his sighting, someone found something pressed into the mud of a creek bank that a houndsman refused to call anything but a cat. In the mud of that creek bank was a track. 4 toes, no claw marks, too broad for any dog. And the houndsman who cast it in plaster insisted no coyote, no lynx, nothing but a big cat made it. That detail matters more than it sounds. A dog track shows claws. This one didn't. Remember that. It's the first thing that can't be waved away. Dogs and coyotes walk with their claws out, so their prints leave little scratch marks at the tips. Cats keep their claws sheathed, 4 round toes, a wide pad, and nothing sharp pressed into the mud. The plaster came out feline, not proof of a cougar, not yet, but it was too big for a bobcat, and it fit exactly one animal that supposedly wasn't there. Then there was the frame itself, that single 3 a.m. October image, pulled apart pixel by pixel by people who wanted it gone. Some called it a bobcat caught at a bad angle. Others said flat out it was a Photoshop job, a house cat, a trick of the flash. So they zoomed in, and the more they zoomed, the worse their own argument got. Because of the tail. Bobcats have a stub tail, a little stump, 6 inches, gone in a blink. The animal in that frame had a heavy rope-like tail that hung almost to the ground and curled at the tip. It was longer than the cat's own legs. No bobcat carries that. The moment you saw the tail clearly, the bobcat theory was finished. That's when the skeptics ran out of easy words, and someone with credentials finally looked hard. A state wildlife biologist took the sequence and measured it, shoulder height against the pine trunk, the tail-to-body ratio, front to back, the way the animal moved through the frame, that long, low-slung gait. He didn't shout. He just said, plainly, that he could not rule a cougar out. So people reached for the last comfortable answer. Somebody's exotic pet escaped, but that fell apart too. No microchip ever turned up. No owner reported a missing cat. No facility filed a loss. And the animal didn't move like something raised behind a fence. It moved careful, wild, reading the dark. Count the explanations we've now lost. House cat, hoax, bobcat, escaped pet. Every easy answer is gone. And notice what happened to the question. It stopped being, is it a cougar? It became something much harder. How could a cougar be here at all? If it wasn't a pet, wasn't a bobcat, wasn't a hoax, and the nearest cougars were 1,500 miles west, then either a ghost population had survived unseen for a century, or a single animal had walked an impossible distance to reach that pine. The record already held the answer to which. And here is where the whole mystery quietly turns over. Not a ghost, not a century-old remnant hiding in the swamps. Something far simpler and far stranger. Young male cougars leaving the Black Hills of South Dakota, pushed out by older males, walking east in search of territory that isn't already taken. Range shift, not fantasy. The mechanism was hiding in plain sight the whole time. These are young cats with no home. Deer thin out, the competition wins, and a 2-year-old male just starts walking. And they don't stop at the next county. They keep going. We know this because one of them was tracked the whole way. A single cougar left the Black Hills and walked from South Dakota to Connecticut. Genetic tests, camera images, hair and scat samples along the route all match the same animal. It crossed Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan's Edge, New York. In 2011, it was struck and killed by a car on a highway near Milford, Connecticut. When they measured the journey, it came to more than 1,500 miles on foot. One cat. 1,500 miles on foot. Confirmed. Once you know that, the frame stops being impossible. Because suddenly that single 3 a.m. October frame doesn't need a secret population to explain it. It doesn't need a miracle. It needs one wandering male doing exactly what wandering males are documented to do, pausing for a heartbeat in front of a trail camera strapped to a jack pine. A cougar standing exactly where science said no cougar could be. And a plain, verifiable reason for how it got there. That is why the biologist never let go of it. Look at what lined up. The deer hunter's tan cat crossing the 2-track at dawn. The plaster cast with 4 toes and no claw marks. The low-slung body, the gait, and that heavy rope of a tail that hangs almost to the ground and curls at the tip. And now, behind all of it, a proven mechanism carrying real animals hundreds of miles east. The trace, the shape, the movement, and the map, all of it points the same way. He read that frame right when everyone else read a glitch. So let's be honest about what this settles and what it doesn't. Confirmed. Cougars are pressing back into the edges of their old eastern range, and dispersing males do turn up impossibly far from home. That part is not in doubt anymore. Here's the question the record still can't answer, and it's the one that matters most. Every confirmed wanderer east of the Mississippi has been male, and a lone male is a dead end. No females, no breeding population. Only ghosts passing through one at a time, leaving a single frame and a fading track, coming back, or just visiting. That is the whole thing. And somewhere out in that pine country, another camera is already waiting for the answer.